What's happening, guys? So after the last solo video that I did, you knew that I was going to do a part two, especially after the last two games or the first two games of the finals. Um, a lot has happened over those 2 days, and it was really interesting. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who engaged with that past video. I guess dedicated to Oilers fans. There was a lot of engagement, a lot of views, a lot of comments, Panther fans, Oilers fans going at it in the comments. We love to see it. You can come here for support, come here to hate on us, troll us, whatever you want to do. But we just want to talk hockey and break down the series and the excitement around the series. But something that got kind of wild in the comments from Oilers fans back then, before the series started, was, this idea that the Oilers were going to win in 4 and 5, that they were defensive juggernauts, that the Panthers had no idea what was coming. We hadn't seen McJesus and, all this stuff. And, in that video, I tried to address all of the reasons why I thought the Panthers had an advantage, why they were a stronger team overall. But I felt like I still gave props to McDavid, to the Oilers, and how dangerous they can be. It just seems like a lot of the fan narratives going into these kinds of games or series are kind of simplified and rah kind of a fan, like we're going to win in 4 kind of a mentality, when I think that also often is the result of, one, not being honest about your own team and really understanding both the advantages and disadvantages and the makeup of your team and the history of your team, which I try to break down also with my brother in the last video we did together. And also just you want to be positive about the result. You also tend to minimize the opposition oftentimes. And, if you haven't watched them as closely or really have read up on them and stuff, you may not know, that many details. And this idea that the Panthers didn't know what was coming with the Oilers felt funny to me, because I feel like often what's happened with the Panthers is that people don't quite understand how they play and what's coming, particularly the last 2 years, but especially this year, and the way the Maurice is built on what they did in last year's run. So anyway, after the first 2 games, I was going to make a whole list of like 10 things that I've noticed in the first 2 games and stuff like that. So I may not do the whole thing, but what I'm going to do is maybe touch on a few of the standout things that I sort of saw and noticed in the first 2 games. And, I guess one of the first ones is that, as I told you, at 5-on-5, even though the first game, the Oilers were more dominant, and I want to say, I think part of it was that the Panthers scored early and the Oilers got to the game real quick. I think Maurice talked about that because they had that pressure. They had to come back. They had to tie it. And I think the Panthers kind of sat back. The Panthers don't play well after long breaks. The Bruins beat the Panthers 5-1 after the Panthers had a long break when they finished their first series against Tampa. And then they kind of corrected and came back. And we've seen that happen with the Panthers. Whenever there's a long break, they tend not to come out very strong. It's not an excuse, just a bad habit that the team has. I think some of that played into it. The Oilers obviously came out super hard and took advantage of the Panthers not being fully prepared to address the gaps, the neutral zone, the speed. And then the Oilers felt, down 2-0 early in the second period after the Panthers killed the penalty and scored right away. So obviously the Oilers were, again, they had gotten to the game. They were desperate. I think by the third period, the Panthers got to their game. And it's funny enough, over the last 4 periods, I think the Oilers have like 0 high danger chances at 5-on-5 over the last 4 periods. So last game and the last period of the first game. And then we saw last game what I was talking about in that video, just how dominant the Panthers can be at 5-on-5, how the numbers kind of show that in the playoffs compared to the Oilers. And I think the Panthers figured out the gap. They had video from that first game, and in terms of the Oilers getting all the breakaways and all that stuff. So I think they were able to correct a lot of it and play a lot better, and got to their game. And it looks pretty dominant. It's the kind of game that's designed to shut you down, to be physical, and then to really hurt you on the counter, to really hurt you with the forecheck. And we saw a little bit of everything. Obviously, Rodriguez had a great game, but I thought the team in general, created a lot of chances and opportunity to score even more. Whereas the Oilers only had 1 5-on-5 high danger chance. I think it was in the power play. And the Panthers penalty kill has been excellent. I told you that. I know that the Oilers were on a run. They've been really good. Panthers have not looked good in the power play, but Panthers only need like a 1 power play goal per game, if that, given the 5-on-5 play to really win. They don't have that pressure to put up a lot of goals in the power play to win a series. So, the Panthers PK is strong. It's been all year. And I told you that last video, and now you're getting to see it a bit. I also wanted to say that, this idea of Mike David and Draisaitl on the speed, yes, a game one, an adjustment. Once you adjust, there have been some really good breakdowns that I've seen out there online, kind of showing that McDavid sort of turning around and dancing and the twist and turning actually sometimes doesn't allow the Oilers to fully set up in ways that they can attack the net, making it harder for them, because the Panthers are really blocking all of the lanes. That is a structure that isn't going to change, and I think that's something that people need to understand. This is how the Panthers have played all year at their best, and in the playoffs at their best. And now that they're in the finals and they've played this way in game two, you're going to see a lot of that. Doesn't mean it will always work. I'm not saying the Oilers are not going to score in the series or on the power play, but it is going to be incredibly difficult. You're going to have to work hard shift after shift, and you're still going to be vulnerable on your own end when the Panthers go the other way. And so, to me, I think it was easy to minimize what the Panthers were doing and to ignore a lot of the things, like the 5-on-5 play, like the penalty kill for the Panthers, like the fact that defensively they can shut you down no matter who you are, no matter your speed. And once you load up Draisaitl and McDavid, there's just not that much else on your team that is going to really get through the Panthers, no matter what line of the Panthers is out there. All the four lines, Maurice trusts them all. You saw in the last game twice, I think 2 different times, the fourth line for the Panthers got stuck in their own end with icings against McDavid and Draisaitl together. And all of those times they won the faceoffs, they got the puck out. And that's the other thing I've noticed in these 2 games. Like, the faceoffs are heavily on the Panthers' end. And if you look how the faceoff numbers for McDavid and Draisaitl in the playoffs this year, they haven't been great. So that was a pattern coming in. And you're not looking at that as an Oilers fan coming into the series. And if you are, you're ignoring it if you're saying the Oilers were going to win in 4 or 5 or whatever. And the other thing was that, the attack and against the Panthers, no matter what the line is, because the Panthers rely on structure, it is just much harder to break that down. The matchups are not as easy for you. Just because McDavid does that doesn't mean he's going to just obliterate everybody. The structure is going to be there no matter who it is for the Panthers. They all play defense hard. They're all committed, from the Barkov and Tkachuk to the fourth line guys and the full defense. So I think that also was ignored. The takeaways have been heavily, I think it was like 25-6, the first 2 games on the Panthers' favor, because of the defense, because of the gap, because of how much of a hard gap game they play. And the stick checking, they get a lot of pucks. They take a lot of pucks away. And we've seen in the first 2 games. The hits, I think they're 100-65 for the first 2 games in favor of the Panthers. They hit you. They hit you a lot. They hit you on the forecheck. They hit you on defense. And what ends up happening is that after a while, we get a Draisaitl hit. And that is tipping your hand a bit. I think the fact that Sam Carrick, gave Kulikov stick down low, got fined for it, I guess, because of a clean hit. The fact that Draisaitl went after Barkov's head, and whether or not, I'm not going to get into the whole thing, should have been suspended. And, looks like Barkov is fine. He was skating today. Looks like he's going to travel. Looks like he's going to skate tomorrow. And if it's good to go, he's going to play. Even if not, I think at most he'll miss a game. And then on the Draisaitl end, whatever, he's Draisaitl, they're not going to suspend him. But he did go after his head. I do think that there was some level of intent there, especially given the guy he was going after, given how tall Barkov is. He left his feet. I mean, all these things. People have part style, the angles and this. Now, when did he really come off the ice? Is it an elbow? Is it a forearm? Listen, he went after his head. It's a nasty hit, dirty hit, however you want to put it. And I think the Fogle hit was not intentional, but it merits again misconduct, because that was very dangerous. And so anyway, that people can parse it out. History won't remember that much. It doesn't matter. The Panthers dominated the game, deserve to win. Not going to make a huge difference. And the fact that Barkov is okay does make it a little bit easier, I think, to swallow. And the Panthers seem very focused. They've seemed ready to move on. I do think they're going to still hit Draisaitl more than they would have otherwise in the series after this. But they're going to be smart about doing that and not taking any dumb penalties. But yeah, you can see that they're already tipping their hand in the sense that the frustration setting in Bouchard. It's already frustrated, taking bad penalties. You're seeing it from Carrick. You're seeing it from Kane. You've seen it from Draisaitl. And this is only game 2. You haven't even played at home. You haven't had something bad happen in front of your home crowd. And that's only going to get worse and exacerbate, because the Panthers are going to keep being relentless, playing this style. This is what they do. And so from a matchup perspective, I think there are a lot of advantages the Panthers have structurally and in terms of depth in the way they play, to be able to minimize some of the impact offensively for the Oilers and try to maximize what they can do. And another area that gets ignored, and I talked about this with my brother, is the Panthers offense. Just easy to ignore because you don't see the fancy big names. You don't even think of Tkachuk as this like fancy scorer, which he's not. And Barkov is more known as a two-way player. But listen, Verhaeghe, Reinhart, if you had watched them the last 2 to 3 years, especially in the playoffs, these guys are performers. They're scorers. They play two ways, all of them. They forecheck. They can score some key goals. Montour missed some shots they should have put on net. Probably going to get eventually one. Forsling could probably get eventually one from the point. And you saw Rodriguez, why we brought him in, his skill. Lundy has taken a step. He's been great. Bennett hasn't taken over offensively yet, but he's been a factor. And Tkachuk hasn't scored. Reinhart hasn't scored yet, but some of that's coming. It's going to come on the power play. It's going to come otherwise. The Panthers have a really good offensive team. All three top lines can attack and can score. I mean, Tarasenko, who's a natural scorer, 30 to 40 goal scorer in the past, like he's on the third line. So, that's kind of something that I think is easy to ignore. And that's all I was trying to say. I wasn't trying to say that the Panthers were going to win the series or, say that it was going to be this or that. But from a matchup perspective, and given how the Panthers have played until now and the competition they face, that was sort of the breakdown. And people didn't want to hear it. Came after me and came after the other fans and kind of saying again, all this silly rah-rah fan stuff, Oilers in 4, Oilers in 5. I'm sure now you're going to say 6, 7, whatever. And that may happen. It's hockey, right? It could turn. But the other thing that I think also, it was actually surprising to me too, was Skinner, how bad he is at moving side to side. I don't think I noticed just how bad it is. Last game, you really got to see it on the Montour shot that hit the post. He was so late. It was a pass and he played it like a shot, and then he got too far to get there. Ekblad missed a shot, sort of a gimme that hit Skinner on the glove. That he didn't even see. He had a lot of net, and he's just incredibly slow. Actually, he's a big guy, so in tight is harder to score on him. So he's a big dude that can cover a lot of net, but his side-to-side movement is as bad as I've seen in the NHL, to be honest with you. And I do think that's going to be a problem. He's not Igor Shesterkin for sure. Now Vasilevsky, now Swayman. The Panthers have faced a lot tougher goalies in the playoffs. And I have to say, the defense, Bouchard, CC, Nurse, who seems to now be hurt. A lot of these guys turn it over. Brobert is still young. The RNA, it's like he was an AHL player till very recently last year. Like these guys they're not used to having to break the puck out as quickly and as in sync as they have to with the Panthers' constant pressure on the wall, on the forecheck. Dallas didn't really play this way. Vancouver doesn't really play this way. The Kings don't really play this way and don't have the depth that the Panthers have had. And I think that was easy to overlook. And Vancouver didn't have the playoff experience that the Panthers have had, which does count for something, and they pushed to the 7. And Dallas should have won that game 6. So again, it's just trying to take stock of the whole thing. The Panthers are not a perfect team. We have some, our defense, can have like our bottom pair with Oyo and Kulikov at times can be vulnerable. Our fourth line, could be vulnerable. There are games in which we have a hard time scoring because we just don't have that elite skill and speed the way McDavid or some other elite players do. But again, we have enough depth and talent to be able to score consistently when we need to over a sample of 7 games. And we have the defense, and Bob has been really strong. He is a 2-time Vezina Trophy winner, was a Vezina finalist this year. He's been great in the playoffs the last 2 seasons. So, he's not the third-string goalie for Vancouver. He's not Cam Talbot, So all these factors are just easy to minimize and ignore and be rah-rah. But all I was trying to do is just, you can root for your team. You can, but also be real. Like if the Oilers come back, good for McDavid, and I get it. They have some top end talent. They can put it on you, and sometimes it can go your way. Then game 1, this idea they should have won a list. Yes, but Bob, again, the goalie's part of their team, had a great. You need those kinds of performances, and the Panthers scored some key goals. And then in game 2, I think they got to their game. We'll see now games 3 and 4. But the Panthers have a really strong road team, just so you know. They're very comfortable. Just ask Boston, who lost games 3 and 4 at home. The Rangers, who lost game 1 and 6 at home. Tampa lost game 3 at home when we went up 3-up on them. So Panthers are a really strong road team. They have been the last 2 years. They actually simplify their game on the road and play even tighter and in a good way, and focus, and they really get off on silencing crowds. So I think they won't be intimidated. I've played in Boston the last 2 years in the playoffs. They played in Vegas, where it's very loud. Carolina's very loud. Toronto in Canada, where it can get intense. And I know that Edmonton has its own thing, but they're not going to be rattled or intimidated by that. And again, if anything, they're going to be more relaxed than they are at home. So it's not going to be so simple to win the next two for Edmonton, especially how things are going, especially if Barco can come back, who's done a great job, I think, on the Oilers in the top lines. So anyway, it's game to game. Not everything's replicable. You can predict how the next game is going to go based on the previous one. That's how the playoffs will work. But all I was trying to say before in my breakdowns and looking at the numbers, looking at the 5-on-5 play, comparing the goalies, talking about what was being fully ignored when it comes to the Panthers, they had gone through, how their team is built, how they play. This is what they do. And I have to say, the Oilers are just not used to it to this level. I think somebody was posting how the Western Conference is just tougher or whatever. Like, look, it's not true. Like the East, the Atlantic is brutal. Tampa, Bruins, Panthers, very physical. Carolina, like hustles all game. The Rangers have Trouba out there trying to take people's head off. It's easy to think your team is the only one that's great, but it's like you lack depth. Like your bottom six is not that great compared to most teams, especially at this stage against a team like the Panthers. And that's okay. That's something you have to match up, right? McDavid and Draisaitl need to perform, but when you build a team around only these one or two players where they really need to be able to put up a huge amount of points against a deep team that can play defense, that's going to be hard. Your defense, Bouchard, he's a turnover machine. He's always been that. I know he's been better and he's talented, but you have to see him against Dallas, who doesn't play physical and doesn't forecheck as much and likes to overpass and turns it over a lot, versus a clear, pure forechecking team like the Panthers that will hit you, go after you, ask you to make quick decisions. And then you see Bouchard trying to hit Lundy on the wall half-assed in the power play and let Lundy make that pass to Rodriguez. We've seen him get hit behind the net, seen him give away a pass to Rodriguez. Cody Ceci has had issues. Nurse has had issues. Again, Broberg is very young or new to this. Their NA is not the best puck mover. I think Ekholm is pretty solid, but it's just hard to do, man. It's hard to do when that's the way you play. And we experienced that way against the Vegas last year. Vegas knew how to break the puck out and really nullify they're a terrible matchup for the Panthers. If we had to face Vegas now, it would be not good for the Panthers because Vegas knows how to break the puck out with that defensive core, and they were physical also on our end, and they have more depth than we did and more size than we did last year, and it showed right away. And yeah, the Panthers were injured and all that, but I think a lot of it just had to do also with the matchup, in addition to everything else. But the Panthers are deeper than they were last year. They're healthier, they're bigger, they're smarter, more experienced. They know how to manage this, and the matchup with the Oilers, I have to say, is just easier than maybe a couple of other teams out west. And matchups do matter. It's not what team is better or whatever. It's just how they match up. So anyway, guys, that's just kind of what I wanted to say. It's easy to be able to say, told you so, and all of this, after the first two games, the Panthers being up, and it will dawn on you as the series goes on, no matter how long it goes. It may go very long, that the Panthers are not going to necessarily veer away from the style. They're going to keep forechecking. They're going to keep waiting, whether they're up 3 or down 3. They're not going to change their style. They're going to continue to hit consistently. They're going to forecheck. They're going to try to score some key goals, and they're going to try to minimize the impact on the other end. I think they've tied a record in the playoffs of comeback wins, so they can come back when they're down. And they're also good in third period, especially shutting things down. And look at the goal differential in third periods. The Panthers are like a plus 16. I think the Oilers are like -7, or -9 or something like that. So anyway, just trying to educate ourselves, trying to be real about our teams. The Panthers are not, I think, the best or most perfect team out there. But they were built to make a run like this. And so you're going to have to play a certain way. You have to make sacrifices. You may have to change your style a little bit to be able to beat them. What I'm curious about to see is whether Knoblauch can get the team to change their style and not just go through McDavid all the time and not just go through like the run and gun or like turn around and try to rotate, because that isn't working. It's keeping them to the outside. They're going to crush the net more. Are they going to make any adjustments on the power play? Are they going to make any adjustments other than trying to go after Barkov's head? Because if that happens again, it's going to get out of hand. And now Draisaitl is going to have to keep his head on a swivel. And again, nothing dirty, but I'm sure that guys near him, if they have a chance to body check, he's going to get a few in the game. Charlie McAvoy went after OEL's head during the season, and the game after, when he had to face the Panther after his suspension, just ask him how that went. He got hit the entire game, and I don't think any penalties were called. He was just getting hit, and he knew, he took it. I mean, to his credit, he's a tough guy. He took it, but that was not a fun game for him. So anyway, let us know what you feel in the comments, where you think the series is at. There'll be a lot of rah-rah stuff. There'll be a lot of silly comments, a lot of like, you're ignoring this, or you blah, 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 and, the team is this, so they're going to come back, and you got lucky in game one and all that. You can watch, you can create. I think when things as fans don't go our way, we start to create an alternate reality or narrative often to be able to justify and make sense of what's happening and still believe. But the truth is that right now, from a matchup perspective, the Oilers are in trouble, not just because they're down 2-0. It's because of what we saw last game, and even first game, showing you that Bob can steal your game. He may steal another one in the series. Can Skinner do that? I don't know. Not from what I've seen. And now, it's not just his fault, just the defense in front of him. And now Nurse is hurt, Kane is hurt. We'll see. But yeah, man, just trying to be honest about the team is built. And when that happens, let's say that the Oilers lose, like, the more you know about what your team needs, the more you can hold them accountable, the more you can expect the kind of moves that your GMs need to make, the kind of players you need to have, the kind of system changes you may need or coaching changes you may need. The way that the Draisaitl and McDavid, I know they have been incredible producers in the playoffs, but as I mentioned with my brother in the last video, it gets so ignored that they got swept by Colorado really badly, that they got beaten by Vegas in the second round, that they got swept by the Winnipeg Jets the year before, with Maurice as coach in the first round, even though the Oilers, I think, would probably have obviously the better top talent. It's not easy to win the playoffs, and the style that the Oilers play, I have to say, as a neutral, as an outsider watching them, they so rely on McDavid's speed and playing 25 to 30 minutes and Draisaitl's one-timer, that Bob is anticipating that it's hard to know what the identity is aside of that, like in terms of their offense. If they're not getting the breakaways, if they're not able to break the puck out super fast, they're just letting McDavid break it in, which is always going to do. But once he turns, the other guys don't know where to go, and the longer that puck sort of stays there, and the more that rotation happens on the outside, the more the Panthers can live with them, the more the Bob can see the shots. And Panthers are really good and really big on defense to keep you out of the front of the net. And Hyman's been complaining a lot because no matter who's in front of the net, having a hard time staying there. So you have to understand how teams are built and what you need to bring in. And I just feel like there's an over-reliance on the talent and over-reliance on the speed, and not enough on a system that is more forechecking and aggressive and can actually free up space for these talented guys. And I do think that McDavid sometimes kind of, the brain freezes. He's just dancing back and forth, and there's no rhyme or reason there. There's no systems, there's no flow against a well-structured team. In the regular season and against open teams or teams that don't want to defend as hard, or teams that are looking more slowly to break out, Panthers don't cheat. They don't cheat on offense. They don't try to just break out. They wait to get the puck, and then they support each other to get it out. You have to be able to match up to that. And I think that over the last few years, the Oilers haven't really truly done that, and this is why they're falling short, despite the talent and despite McDavid and Draisaitl putting up a bunch of points in the playoffs, because they have done that in the past too. So that's just a way of understanding what you have. But what I was hearing from a lot of fans is like, oh, it's a machine. You've never seen anything like this, and it's unstoppable, and how you're going to stop that speed or whatever. That's silly fan talk. That's just silly shit. It comes across as really uninformed. He's not superhuman. There's a reason they have gotten swept. Like, if he was really that superhuman, he had 3 cups by now with Draisaitl. And that hasn't happened, right? So just trying to be real, man. Just trying to be real about that. So yeah, it's intriguing. I guess I will say a little bit of the "I told you so." And now the Barkov looks like he's fine. It ain't gonna be easy. Draisaitl's not gonna get his way. Not gonna get him out of the series. And I'm telling you, the 2 games at home for you guys, even if you put up a lot of goals, they're still going to hurt, They're still going to be difficult. There's going to be a lot of a physical toll, mental toll from the way that the Panthers play. And Kachuk and Reinhardt and Bennett, some of these guys, even for Hagee, haven't really gotten going. Montour hasn't gotten going. He doesn't get the shine that Bouchard gets or whatever. But in the playoffs, he can perform. So, all right. So we'll see what happens. My brother and I will do a video on Friday. We'll recap tomorrow's game and then preview game 4. But yeah, keep liking, supporting. We're the Florida Hockey Bros. We're going to be talking hockey throughout the year. Give us a like, share it, whatever you have to do. Hate in the comments. make fun of us. But yeah, we're trying to grow the channel. We're huge fans of the sport, talking about the Panthers, but also other teams. And yeah, all these fans, come at me again, and I'll see you maybe next week after Game 4. See where we are in the series, and I may have to eat some crow, or you may be on the brink of going home. So we'll see. All right, thank you guys. Peace.